everyone, this is Starzenith33. Laura Francesca's here talking to you about the Astroweather and what is going on as the Libra moon just entered. And there is a lot of things going on, let me tell you. So you're going to be hearing a whole lot more about me, okay? And as I talk about the frequencies that we're having. But before that, I do want to say happy Memorial Day to everybody, to the fallen heroes that have served this country. We congratulate you. We salute you that you have served this country. I know I have a fallen cousin that passed away and many years ago, by the way, and he was a proud Marine, and I'm very proud to have been his cousin, and he was so sweet and everything. I didn't know what his sign was. I think he was a Libra. I'm not sure. He had the characteristics of a Libra, very balanced, very harmonious, very kind, but he was a rebel as well, or else he would have not entered the Marines, okay? So anyway, let's jump in there. Okay, so we are here. I'm actually looking at my turtle because I have him like just going all over the house. And, I don't know what it is. He just does not like being in his aquarium anymore. And a lot of it has to do with these energies. Okay. So pay attention to your pets, especially for the past 48 hours. Okay. We had the moon in Virgo. So our pets could have been a little bit feisty, a little bit just want to be out or just being rebellious. Okay. And, you know, I don't know what is wrong with my turtle. I hope nothing's wrong with the turtle, but he's been very feisty. And I know it has to do with the planets. Okay. It's not that something's wrong with him. It's just that when these planets, especially with Uranus in Gemini just wants to be outdoors. Okay. Uranus in Gemini wants to meet people, and I know I should have took him out earlier today, but I had a lot of things going on in the house. So, I mean, things that I have to do, scheduling, and I had a couple of readings that I had to do on people. And so that kind of, it prevents me from going out there and enjoying the day. But anyway, so my turtle is just, like, wants to be running around the house. And now when I take my turtle out of the aquarium, he runs to me. He's a runner. Oh my gosh. I don't know how he learned how to run, but he runs really fast now, okay? And he runs really fast to bite to bite my feet. I was gonna say teeth. To bite, yeah, he has big teeth, and he opens his jaw like really, it's so weird to look at him because he looks like a reptile. Well, I think he is a reptile, but he opens his mouth and they can see his teeth, and then he bites. Okay. So I'm just like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Wait, why are you biting me? And I don't know. He's been doing that a lot, like wanting to attack me. And I don't know what is wrong. I'm going to pray for my turtle. Actually, going to pray for him because he is been acting really rebellious, and I know it has to do with Uranus and Gemini because, we've had Uranus and Taurus, and we feel a little bit stuck with Uranus and Taurus. It was more about doing what we're told, from authority figures, right? When they're not even obeying themselves. It's like, do what I say, not what I do, right? And, it was very much about, religion and real estate and authority because, Taurus rules authority, right? And it can have a lot of control. But as soon as Gemini entered there, we're going full throttle, green light in Gemini for the next 7, 8 years. Okay. And, you know, that's it. We're in Uranus Gemini now. So a lot of people, and including pets, they can be a little bit rebellious or maybe a lot. Okay. So just beware if you see those kids out there, they're just like starting fights and anything, just stay away from them because they're very rebellious. Right now, it's a lot of like doing like rallies and like picketing, and we're going to see a lot of that. Okay. A lot of young people want to make a difference and want to be heard and want to be put out there and everything. A lot of communication is going on, which I love. I'm so glad that we are going to have a lot of communication with Uranus and Gemini. And, especially if you're a podcaster or you're a speaker or you're a publisher or you want to publish a book or anything like that, it's a great time for that, right? Or ebooks or anything like that. That all rules Gemini, ruling with words and communication. So yeah, my turtle, I don't know, hopefully I'm just kind of watching him because I hope he's not doing he's such a rebel. He was on top of this furniture, like this metal furniture was like a black metal furniture. We have like little, decoration and stuff like that in the living room. And he went on top of it and then you could climb out of there, right? But I looked at him, I was like, "What are you doing?" And he thought he was gonna fit because he's growing, his shell is pretty big. And he thought I was like, "Are you serious? You're really gonna do that?" And he was so stubborn that he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." And I didn't think he was. I was like, "Oh my gosh." I said, I'm not even gonna watch him." You know, I'll watch him from far. And I thought he was gonna hurt himself. I really did. Like, he could have, like, flipped over, and, so I looked at him, and he fit through the hole. He was able to fit himself through the hole, and then he jumped out. And I was like, "Wow, what a smart turtle." You know? And he was so determined, but, that was an example of take your shot, you know? Like, just go for it, right? Don't be limited by anything. And I was gonna grab him and say, "No, no, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna break your shell." But I let him and I said, "Okay, you wanna be evil Knievel? Go ahead and see if you fit through that hole," right? So, yeah, he did, and he jumped out as well, okay? So, it was like he was jumping out of that furniture, and I was like, "Wow, what a show off," right? He probably likes to show off or something and be like, "See? Nothing happened?" And so I trusted the turtle. I trusted that it was gonna fit through that hole, but I was scared, I really was. I was like, "Oh, man, I hope he doesn't break a shell or the scute is the top of the shell, but they only come off because you're growing as a turtle. So they come off like, little I save them because I think they're good luck. So I have a little bag of full of all his scutes and stuff, but it's just I was so scared. I was like, "Oh my god." So anyway, things like that can happen with your pets if you have dogs, you have cats. Look at how they're acting right now, okay? Because we got some strong, strong energies going on right now. And I'm so glad that the moon is in Libra, okay? Because we needed that moon in Libra because Virgo for the past 48 hours was very critical. I noticed that in other people that they're not even Virgos. It was a frequency. So when the moon is in Virgo, we tend to criticize. Just a lot of critique, a lot of opinions and so forth. And I know that when the moon is in Virgo, it's like, oh, honestly, I just stay quiet, because and actually that should be my most creative time because I do have fifth house in Virgo. And, you know, I can be creative and so forth. But, it rules the police and then it rules just I it's not so good having Virgo in the 5th house, and it's so interesting because I was I'm hearing downloads, that's why I'm kinda I I was analyzing Dua Lipa, if you guys know who she is, she's celebrity, young celebrity, a millennial, and she sings a lot of songs, and I didn't know that she had her Mercury in the 5th house in Virgo. So, Mercury is about singing and so forth, and I was looking at one of her concerts on YouTube, and she kinda looked a little bit boring. She's sexy, don't get me wrong. She's a pretty girl, and she's sexy, but there was something boring about her. I wanted to just change the channel, you know? I wanted to look at another channel on YouTube, and it was but I was just like, there's something she was in Mexico City, by the way, and the group Mana had to help her out, you know, to capture more audiences. They weren't really yelling a lot for her. Usually, if you're a big celebrity like that, you go to Mexico City, you expect the people, especially in Mexico. And she did have a full audience. It was all jam packed, but There was not a lot of excitement. So I looked at her chart. I was like, "Oh, no wonder." Okay, so I see where that kind of boring thing can be coming from when you have Mercury, your communication in Virgo, which it's in a good placement, but when it comes to singing, it's not the best. Okay, for the fifth house in entertainment, you can sound a little bit boring. Like you're not like a Beyonce. You know what I mean? And so she needed some help from the group Mana in Mexico City, which they're very popular in Mexico City, in order for the people in Mexico to kind of get more excited about her music. So it's interesting that, I also have fifth house in Virgo. I don't think I'm boring, but I don't have it in a planet. So I don't have no Virgo in no planet. So yeah, so I was looking at that. And so for the past 48 hours, it's been very critical. Now the moon's in Libra. Okay, so Libra is so much better, so much balance. It's about beauty. Anything you eat, you want to eat something beautiful like a cake or maybe some dessert that's like really beautiful, like, oh my God, like pink hearts or something. Or a pink flower or something, like cupcakes and so forth that are beautiful, right? A lot of pink, trends also with the moon in Libra. I was born with the moon in Libra as well. So, it's a lot about beauty and aesthetics and art. Okay, art also, beautiful art and so forth, feminine art. So, the interesting thing about the moon in Libra is that it's a cardinal sign. Okay. So, when it's a cardinal sign, it's going to have oppositions and squares with other signs, okay, like Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer. Okay, we don't have Capricorn. The only thing we have is probably Folas, that's an asteroid that has to do with business. What we have in Aries, we have Saturn and Neptune in Aries now. Okay. And let me see what else here. Looking at the chart here. Oh, we got Pallas as well. Okay. Pallas is the asteroid of strategy. It's in the sign of Aries, and we got Chiron. Oh, I can't forget Chiron. So Chiron is a wounded healer asteroid of healing. Okay. So it's in the sign of Aries, and it's at 28 degrees of ancestors. Wow. Of ancestors and real estate and children. So that is where we are healing. Okay. In Aries. And it's about to leave. Okay. Taurus is about to enter Chiron. And that's very important. That's another podcast that I'm going to be talking about. That's going to be very, very important. Okay. Because Taurus has to do with Wall Street. It has to do with finances. It has to do with real estate. It has to do with money, with banks. Okay. I said it. There might be this suffering with banks. There might be problems with money with banks. Okay. Because Chiron expects for you to heal things that have to do with Taurus, okay? Another thing too, let me grab my turtle because my mom does not like the turtle to follow her. Turtle, no, no, not in there. No, no, mm-mm. No, because mom is. Let me put you. You know what? I'm gonna put him back in the aquarium. Hang on one second, guys. This was not planned. That's why I don't like to let my turtle out the aquarium because I have to follow him all over the house to see what he's doing, to see if he's not hurting himself or something. Okay, go back in there, okay? You already walked a little bit. There, okay? Put your light on. All right, there we go. You know what? Let me feed him real quick because I'm going to be at least an hour. Here, here, Venus. Venus, there's your food. There's Scooby snacks. Okay, there, because I don't want to be responsible. Okay, so we're heading back now. So where was I? You know what? Let me wash my hands. Sorry, guys. I want to wash my hands because when you touch the turtle, they tend to get salmonella. So, but I do bathe my turtle, but just in case, every time you grab a turtle, you have to wash your hands. So just in case, you know. All right. But my turtle's healthy, so he's a healthy turtle. But still, I don't want to get any, I don't know. I'm just very icky like that. So, okay, so we're back here. Thanks for your patience. So where was I? I was talking about Chiron, right, and Taurus. So that's going to be another podcast about finances and real estate and so forth. Right now it is in Aries, so a lot of things that are happening with the ancestors here has to do with Aries things, with having to be a leader, having to take action. You might be the breadwinner, you might be in your family, and you might have to take action, okay? With pertaining to a family member, okay, that needs healing, okay? So you might be supporting that family member, just preparing, in case if something worse happens or, you know, like if they get sick or something, you got to take them to the doctor, you got to take them to hospital or something, especially because it pertains to a degree of ancestors, of families. An example that can be is what happened at Garden Grove. Okay. I know a lot of people are listening around the world, but here in California, in the United States, there's a place called Garden Grove, California, and they recently had an explosion. Okay. And I talked about this in the previous episode. I think it was episode 37, where I was talking more about blockages and how to unblock them. But I was talking about, the families that were taken into auditoriums, they were taken into, you know, like empty spaces where they can sleep. And when they were there, we don't know if they served them food or not. We haven't heard nobody's talking about that, right? But they had to sleep there with other families. Most likely there had to be food, you know, but we don't know if they have ate or not, right? Or if they have anything to drink water or something. Because this was so unexpectedly, they just had to grab their things and they had to move out, right? And they say, you got to get out. Just grab your belongings and get out because, they're trying to avoid a bigger eruption that can happen with this big old tank, right? So anyway, the Chiron in Aries it could pertain to these families that, are sleeping in an auditorium, in a gym, with other families. Usually it would be like more like Latinos, maybe some black families if they have black people around there that live in that area. I know there were a lot of Saigon Vietnamese people that live in the Garden Grove area. Some Latinos. I know in Anaheim, a lot of Latinos in Anaheim, which is so surprising because I found out yesterday that there's a supermarket called Vallarta and it is in Anaheim, and they didn't evacuate. So they were 5 miles away from where the leakage was, but they didn't feel that they needed to, evacuate. They didn't feel that they had to, let their employees go home or if I say go back home, maybe they're going back home now. Maybe they're returning back home. So there's this healing, the aftermath of what happens in a situation that in that way, where now they get to return home and now they get to heal, right? Because what they experienced maybe was scary. What they experienced was the smell, the odor, and everything else, and how it's going to impact them later on, maybe, getting side effects or something. So now they have to heal, so that's that Chiron in Aries, right? And there's some healing in leadership that was taken, that there's something that heals. You get healed by maybe the right leadership that took action, you know, that the LAFD that, did their job and they were communicating a lot. Okay. They did a lot of communication, and that is in an emergency like that, you need good communication, you know, and they were open-minded to ideas. That's the thing too. They say if anybody knows anything about, because they said we're the fire department, but we've never encountered anything like this. We don't know how to handle things like this. We weren't prepared to handle something like this. Where you just have to let it leak. And you can't get near it. You can't touch it. You can't. And so yeah, it's so funny because I was in X yesterday and there were some smart kids that they were saying, "Well, this is a tank and this is how." They were trying to teach the Ellie. This is why I'm saying that Virgo moon. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So there were these smart kids that made this tank as a model of a tank, just so just to show how uh, of maybe an option of what they can do. And it kind of remind me of my science days. But they created this model of a tank. It said, what if you get all that water leakage and you put it in a container, and then that container goes into I don't know. They had this. It was kind of hilarious, but in a way not, because it is serious, a serious situation, because they were open-minded. They said, "If anybody knows, how else can we work this out?" So they were open-minded, very Gemini, if you have a better solution, let us know, right? But I'm so glad that now, they did get the help. I think Gavin Newsom said that they got help from the president with how to fix this situation and how to stabilize it. So I would think that they're going back home. They haven't said anything yet, but that came out of my mouth. So pertain to something else, and maybe that's a sign of they're going to go back home. You know that maybe it's time for them to go back home, and now they get to heal, right? They get to heal for what happened. So that could pertain there. Okay, that degree in Chiron in Aries. So with this moon in Libra, there's going to be opposition to Aries, and there's going to be a challenging square with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, Jupiter in Cancer has to do with families, okay? And where Jupiter Cancer is in the 10th house of public participation. And the motto there is, I relate with the world. So Jupiter in the 10th house, okay, it's about ambition, it's about recognition, it is about promotion of the carrying out of responsibility, okay? It has to do with achievements, with how the world sees us and evaluates us, okay? So it rules status and symbols and applause and everything. It could be pertaining to the Los Angeles Fire Department, or other leaders, but it's in a square with Libra, okay? It's in a square with, I don't wanna make it all about Garden Grove, but it kind of pertain it looks like it's coming out that way, but I'm gonna just say this and then just end it there because not everybody's going through that. But I use metaphors and I use examples so people can understand the astrology and what I'm talking about. So with the moon in Libra, we know it's all about balance, all about harmony, right? And Jupiter in Cancer, ruling families, it's in a challenging square with how we feel about balance, right? Because we don't really, and I'm speaking in behalf of the people that live in Garden Grove. They don't feel safe enough. Okay, I don't feel, based on the astrology, I don't feel they feel safe enough. Okay, if they tell them to go back home, they're like, okay, we're gonna go back home, but there's still gonna be a thought in there: is it really safe to live here? Maybe there's thoughts, you know what, we're gonna sell the house or we're gonna move out and go to another area, you know, there that's a possibility, okay? Because this square with Jupiter in Cancer that has to do with real estate, what happened now is screwed up the real estate, okay? Now the real estate and families as well. Because where we have Jupiter right now is at 22 degrees of real estate, okay, of Capricorn. So i- for me, it looks like there's a lot of authority from business leaders in that area. Okay. That's where Jupiter is. Jupiter's in Cancer, but it's at the degree of Capricorn. Okay. So this has to do with maybe control over families where that 10th house is. It rules men, it rules billionaires, it rules corporate, it rules all of that. Okay. And that's making a challenge to the moon in Libra of balance, of harmony, of a beauty. Like it's no longer beautiful anymore, you know? And so it might be more corporate now and not so, I would not be surprised if they demolish some, if it's just, if they make it very corporate around there and not so much a community, of homes and so forth, where capitalism controls that area and it's no longer community like, you know, something just shifted in there. So so that's what happens. So it's squaring Jupiter and Cancer, ruling families. And let's see here. Okay, so that's and so that's what's going on. So it's squaring Cancer in Jupiter, families, and is opposing Aries in the North Node and in Saturn. Saturn is rules, discipline, authority, the police. Okay, so it's also opposing Saturn and Neptune. Neptune has to do more with, there could be like lies, propaganda, all of that rules Neptune, like it's not real. But it could be something, it's at 3 degrees of communication. So there could be some communication that's not real. Okay. So you got to discern what is real and what is not. This is why I do the astro maps. Okay. And not to come against people's work, not to come against the LA Fire Department, because I kind of took it like yesterday. They wanted to do their own investigation and they didn't want people to meddle in and interrupt whatever investigation they're doing. And I'm not saying because I know astrology, but it could be, because I am popular. And I just said, okay, let them do the investigation. I'm not going to say anything anymore. But what astrology does, it debunks lies and propaganda. Okay. Because, what I was looking at the maps, I was like, it looks like it's going to settle down. It looks like I was doing a lot of reports like that with the maps to see the frequency in that area because frequency matters a lot. If you have Pluto that is transiting in that area where it blew up, guess what? It's more likely that it's going to blow up because of that frequency that is sitting there in that location. Okay. And that's how I'm able to predict. And, you know, I did see Pluto yesterday. So some people are saying that, they're still not out of the danger zone, but it has calmed down. So, hopefully, it could be calmed down and it goes away or something. But with astromaps, it's always the planets are always moving around. Okay. So what was Pluto yesterday, today, Neptune or Venus could be passing through there. This is why it's good to look at them every day. So Neptune at 3 degrees of communication, it could be a little bit of propaganda there. And it's in opposition with the moon in Libra because the moon in Libra wants truth. It wants honesty. That's why it rules the courts. It rules lawyers. You know what? There might be something like that because I did read an article where they said they were going to sue the Garden Grove chemical plant because they didn't protect the people. They did not. They just, told them to move out and there was no warning about anything, and it was very unsafe. So I do feel that a lot of people are going to sue. They are. And I did see an article. Okay. It was yesterday. And the interesting thing that now the moon's in Libra that has to do with courts, it has to do with lawyers, attorneys, judges, it has to do with justice, right? And that is a possibility, a big possibility that they are going to get lawyers or they're going to assign them lawyers for those that want to, you know, fight the chemical plant. Because that's normally what happens. Okay. I've been through a refinery explosion, okay, in my hometown in Wilmington, California. And They used to have several explosions. I did experience one, no, actually 2 of them, but one of and I dodged both, me and my family. But one of the ones that was very explosive, we did do lawsuits on both of them actually. And, you still have to, go to therapy and make sure that everything was okay or whatever it is, but, in order for you to get paid, But that's what happens when you go through these explosions and, then all of a sudden you get a lawyer, you lawyer up, right? So I see that here in the chart. So they're going to have to pay out a lot of these families because the moon is opposing Neptune and Saturn in Aries. That has to do with leadership, okay? And where we have Saturn, let's look at there, is in the seventh house of relationships, okay? Contracts, okay? So there's going to be contracts that are going to be signed in the we are, okay? We are rules the seventh house, and it has to do with partners, it has to do with corporations, all of that. It has to do with public relations, business dealings, representatives, all of that has to do with the seventh house. And that's in a sign of Aries that has to do with leadership in the 11th degree of community. Okay. So, it's interesting because what I'm looking at is a T square. It's a T square that's going on. So a T square is when there's an opposition and then there's a square. And those are very volatile. Those are very just toxic, you know. T squares are not good. Okay, they're just not good because you have to be in action. There's an opposition that is opposing you, and then you have a challenge over here on the side. So can you imagine of having a situation you got to fix some type of situation that's opposing you, and then you fix that, and it's like, okay, you're not done yet. Now you have a challenge over here. So you got to be in both places, right? And that's a T square. So it's like busy, 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 fixing this opposition, and now there's a challenge over here. It's kind of like it blew up, right? Whatever, it blew up and it remained stable, right? It was able to stabilize. It didn't erupt bigger, but not everything is cleared out because now you could have a challenge over here. Let's hope that doesn't happen, right? So they have to be watching these, what are the tanks? They have to be watching these tanks because even though they fixed this one here and it's stabilized, or maybe they didn't fix it, they just stabilized it, they calmed down. I would watch the second one, okay? Because I don't know, I'm hearing the word tower is coming down. They need to be watching the other one because it could erupt, okay? And that's a T square. When you think you got it under control and then something else happens over here. Okay. So that's what I'm seeing in the chart. As the moon opposing Aries there, and then is squaring over here in Jupiter. And Jupiter has to do with expansive, it has to do with over the top. Okay. And it's interesting that it is squaring Venus as well. Okay. Saturn is squaring Venus, like, geez. Neptune and Saturn and Pallas is it's all squaring Venus in Cancer. Okay, so this has to do with females at 8 degrees of Scorpio. Okay, so this could be these females that have Scorpio Cancer. I don't know. I think Latinas, to tell the truth, they remind me a lot of that. And let me check here. Venus. Venus is in the 10th house. So there could be these females because Venus, it's very love and money that have elevated. So there are these females that have money, have maybe professional businesses of some sort. And so there's a challenge there with Saturn, and that has to do with billionaires, that has to do with men, that has to do it's chaotic right now, let me tell you, it is chaotic. Love lives right now. It could be females being challenged by men, you know? And the women that are being challenged are the women that are in their power, that own a business, or simply they have the influence, okay? And it's making men feel small, okay? So it could be these females that they're on top of the game, they're influential, they got power, they feel good about themselves, they're making money, all of that, right? And they're in this elevation, like they know who they are, they're at the top of the food chain, and it's making a challenge to these billionaires, okay? These men in it could be pertaining to relationships, it could be pertaining to contracts of some sort in the community at 11 degrees with Saturn and Aries. 11 has to do with the community, okay? So there's a challenge there, there's a challenge there. And so, when the moon is in Libra, like I said, it's going to oppose Aries, it's going to square Cancer, it's going to challenge Cancer, and is going to challenge Capricorn as well. So even though we don't have Capricorn in the chart, you might be a Capricorn or you might have Capricorn in your chart. So it's going to challenge you as a Capricorn. Okay. This one in Libra. It might be like you might get triggered because, Libra has to do with beauty. And maybe if you're a Capricorn, you don't feel as beautiful or you don't feel as entitled, or why does Libra always get all the work? Why does Libra always get all the jobs? Why does Libra, feel so lucky? Why does she always lucky? And I have to work hard. It could be something like that because I've experienced it with other people. Uh, and my suggestion is this, okay? Because I've been on both ends, okay? I've been on the Capricorn, I have strong Capricorn, and I have strong Libra. And, actually, I have more stronger Libra than Capricorn, but I do have strong Capricorn because I have it in Mars. But I've been on both ends, okay? The receiving end and also, saying, "Why do I have to work hard?" And my suggestion is, okay, and people have seen me too, like, she has it so easy and she gets everything she wants, and why do I have to work hard, and stuff like that. And it's not that I'm luckier than anybody because I'm a hard worker. It's just that this is the secret sauce that what I'm going to tell you guys, okay, and ladies, okay, that when you are in your feminine, which is the moon in Libra, where it is right now, you tend to get gifts, you tend to get help, you tend to get opportunities when you're in your feminine, okay? And it becomes more easier. This is why even men want to be women. If you notice, a lot of men want to be women because women have it so easy. And I remember there's one guy when I was in network marketing, he had said, women have it so easy if they only knew their own power. You know, if they only knew how powerful if women knew how powerful they are, they would use more of that power. But there's a lot of women that don't know their power, and so they don't use it, right? This is why you have to know where your power lies, right? But it's interesting he said that, and it's good that he said that because I was like, you know, and this was, back in the days when I didn't know my power and I didn't know that. But for a guy to say that, you know, that takes balls because, a guy does not want a woman to be more powerful than him. But when he said, even me as a guy, and I notice females, they don't know how powerful they can become, just simply because they're women. They have more opportunities and so forth. And so when you are in your femininity, like you dress good, you look good, you smell good, you're aesthetically beautiful, and it's being your own kind of beautiful, right? It's not being a certain standard of beauty, because everybody's beautiful in their own way. Then you receive, people want to help you, people want to give you opportunity, but when you're in your masculine side, like being Capricorn, right? Then people are not going to want to help you. because they're like, well, she's boss. She could handle it. I asked to help her and she doesn't want my help. And I asked if I could help her carry the bags and she said she has it. Like, it's okay, I got it. And I've been there, but I didn't know this, right? So and I didn't realize like, I must be acting in I guess I was acting in my masculine side. So of course they're not gonna help you. They say, well, she has it, she's a boss, she could handle it. And no, no, we can't handle everything. We need help. We're not an octopus, okay? We don't have like 10 tentacles and can do 10 things at one time. So when you are in your feminine side, then people tend to gravitate towards you and help you and give you opportunities. And that's why the moon in Libra can be very feminine, and other signs like Capricorn, Aries. Aries can be very masculine as well, ruled by Mars. They can tend to get a little bit jealous on Libras because of that. Because Libras doesn't have to work hard. They're like, I'm just myself. That's it. As long as I'm beautiful, as long as I dress good and I smell good and I'm feminine, I'm flirtatious and I'm very girly or just, then I get things. I don't have to work hard like Capricorn and Aries, right? So those could be, the challenges there and the opposition there, okay? So don't compare yourself to anybody, just be yourself. But you don't have to be so in your masculinity. And I know I'm working to release all of that because I was a longshoreman for 10 years, okay, a decade. And when you work that long in a male dominant type of business, you just tend to be very male dominant, and you act like the guys. You do. You got to act tough or else you're not going to get respect, you know? And so, my thing is that when you work that long with men and you gotta be tough like men, when let's say you quit that type of environment, or you walk away from that type of environment, then you have to heal the feminine side and you got to be more feminine now, and release the masculine because you're done with that cycle. And so now you got to be your feminine self, and that's how, you get help and you get opportunities and people approach you more and so forth, right? So beauty does sell. Okay, it does sell. Okay, this is why makeup sells so much, right? So what is going on? So that's the T square that's going on, okay? I do want to talk real quick here. So right now, just think about right now it's switched up to 4 degrees. What was it? Let me refresh it here. No, it's at 5 degrees. Okay. So now it feels better because a 5 degree is a degree of Leo. So now it feels more entertaining. It's not so structured where the moon is in Libra. Okay. So right now it has a Libra Leo. So this is about entertainment. This is about having fun. This is about traveling. This is about being creative, children, and so forth. So now the frequency has changed. It's not so controlling with the 4 degree. So just watch out for, not getting triggered, especially if people get triggered a lot with the moon in Libra by either an Aries or a Capricorn. And so just watch out for that. Okay. Just balance yourself. And I did want to talk about before I leave, let's see here, because, when the moon is in, when the moon is in Libra, which is an air sign, okay, besides the square and the opposition with Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune over there, we do have some favorable aspects when the moon is in Libra, okay, with Gemini. Okay, we got Uranus in Gemini. So it is getting along very well with Gemini. It has to do with Uranus, it has to do with innovation, it has to do with thinking outside the box, right? Ideas, all of that, okay? And they get along very well. They're both air signs. So they get along really, really well. Okay. Let me see here. And then it's getting along also with the sun in Gemini. Okay. So that we're in Gemini season. Happy birthday to all Geminis. My brother's a Gemini. So, the sun, it is, making a trine to the moon. So they're getting along really, really well. This is about ideas. This is about wanting to, be peaceful, wanting to be harmonious and so forth, besides all this other conflict that's going on, when it comes to like leadership, politics, all of that, if you want to have your peace, stay away from the politics. That's all I got to say. Okay. Because that's a lot of drama going on there, explosions in politics and, you know, the politicians in Los Angeles, the Spencer, I mean, if you want to, jump in there, go ahead. I'm not saying, but if you want peace, you want tranquility, you want harmony, just, connect with Uranus and Gemini, right? Come up with ideas and so forth. And there is this one transit that is very, very, very important. Okay, that's happening tonight. It actually perfects today at 9:02 p.m. And that is between Mars square Pluto. Okay. And yeah, it's, I talked about it last night. And just so people can understand it a little bit more with some memes in X. And I put a meme of like this monkey on a phone, calling the FCC and being like a little snitch, and snitching on. And that was the whole Mars, because Mars is in Taurus. And it's exactly, well, it's actually, yes, it's exactly at 5 degrees. Okay. So Mars is in Taurus at 5 degrees of Leo. This could be very entertaining though. I don't really see a like big dramatic thing. Honestly, I really don't. But Mars in Taurus at 5 degrees, okay, it's exactly in a square with Pluto, okay, at 5 degrees of Aquarius. And exactly at 5 degrees, that's when things happen. So the malefics of Mars, can you imagine the planet of Mars? Aggression, military, war. And then you got Pluto, which ends things, okay, demolishes, it constructs it, it brings it down, okay, it transforms. They're both going toe to toe, okay, and they're clashing with each other. And where we have Pluto right now in Aquarius is in the fourth house of real estate. That's where we have it right now. It's going to change as the hours go by, okay? But right now it's in real estate, okay? It's in the where the motto is of I belong. So it has to do with the home of your parents, of your family. It has to do with heritage, ancestry, property, real estate, houses, immovable possessions. It also relates to endings of all matters, okay? It has to do with your body as well. So take care of that body. Also, it has to do with anything psychological going on in your environment, your unconscious mind, okay? And also, it has to do with your roots and your lineage, your personal life, your private life, anything that's going on inside your house. That has to do with Pluto right now in Aquarius, okay? At 5 degrees of Leo. So, it kind of reminds me of Los Angeles, of Spencer Pratt, where he's trying to, be the next, is it mayor, I think? And he, with Pluto in Aquarius in the fourth house, it's, he's a Leo. So the 5 degree is the degree of Leo, and he's trying to clean up Los Angeles. So, you know, there's a challenge which he wants to bring change. I could see him as Pluto in Aquarius, a change maker when it pertains to land, when it pertains to real estate in the fourth house, and is making an exact challenge to Mars in Taurus that has to do with real estate. It has to do with tradition. It has to do with loyalty. It has to do with the church, beliefs, all of that, Wall Street, all of that, banks, okay? And it's very aggressive in Mars. So, I can also see it as Latinos, Hispanics, of if you are, it's kind of asking him, if you are elected, how are you going to treat Latinos or Hispanics? What opportunities are going to be given to Latinos and Hispanics? Because I think the thing they're kind of fearful in a way of like, if he gets elected, is this going to be another Trump thing, because, he's Republican and then Trump is sponsoring him as well and everything. Are you going to get rid of Hispanics? Is there going to be racism in Los Angeles? What type of LA are you trying to innovate into? But, I do have to say that there are Hispanic businessmen with a lot of money that are supporting Spencer Pratt. And that's a good thing because that just means that if they support him, then he's going to have to support Latinos because they sponsored him. They gave him a lot of donations, a lot of money, you know? And I just hope that, I mean, who else better right now than actually Spencer Pratt, you know? He's not a miracle worker, He does want to bring like the film industry back and he wants LA to be a fun place again and so forth and clean the streets. And that's going to take a big job to clean, you know, Skid Row and all of that, right? But I'm pretty sure he's going to have help of other people. He's not going to do it by himself. But I think, when it comes to Taurus, is about trust. Can we trust you that you are going to be for Latinos, because this is our land, you know, and, it should be for everybody. And, honestly, if he is with Pluto in Aquarius, I do feel that he is for everybody. Okay. Because Aquarius is about the collective. Okay. Aquarius is not just about your people, it is about everybody. Okay. And so it includes everybody. And if that is where he is, okay, to bring that change, to bring that innovation, then, give him a shot. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I mean, there hasn't been no change with Karen Bass. There has been, it actually has gotten more dirtier, LA, and more scarier. I don't even go to LA anymore. I had to cancel a couple trips that I wanted to do to Chinatown. And I said, oh no, I'm not going to go. Last time I went, it was really scary. I mentioned that there was this black guy that was homeless and stinky and crazy, and he was on drugs, and he had like these samurai blades. Like thought he was, I don't know, he thought he was an actor or something, but he was throwing it. He was like putting fear into people, that just total strangers, like wanting to use those samurai blades on people. And I was hiding behind this man. He said, "Hide behind me," And I just felt very protected by that man. I don't know who he was, but I'm like, I am not, because I tend to attract a lot of crazy people like that because of my light. And I'm the type of person that if I'm in a group of people and somebody crazy is acting that way, the first person that they're going to zone in is going to be me. Okay? There's something it's my human design as well, that I tend to attract these crazy people, and out of a group they'll choose me, who they come and try to attack. Yeah. And that has to do with my human design, because I have a lot of light, and they're lost, and they're dark souls that are looking for the light. It's kind of like a moth. A moth will fly into the light because it wants the light, right? Because, the dark needs the light and the light needs the dark, right? And it was a scary, scary thing for me, And I mentioned it in my other podcast that I had in Swellcast, and what a very horrific situation, if he would have came at me with, I would have probably been dead, and just because I decided to go to downtown LA. And that's a scary thing because I'm an Angelino. I want LA to be clean. I want LA to not have murderers and people on drugs, and it's like looking like a third world country. It's really sad. LA and San Francisco. So I don't know what's going on with California. Like, why are leaders not stepping up? Especially when Latinos contribute $500 million. Okay. Their contribution to Los Angeles, even if, Latinos are here and maybe they don't have immigration here, but they have temporary visas or whatever it is, whether it's DACA, and other people, and they got to pay a lot of money, and they pay taxes. Okay. They pay taxes. They give them an EIN number and they pay taxes. So all of that contribution that Latinos are doing here in Los Angeles, and this was a couple years ago that the data showed that there were $500 million that they contribute to Los Angeles. So it's higher now. So what's going on with that money? Why is that money not being used to clean up the streets, to clean up, businesses and so forth? That is a lot of money every year. And this was like maybe 5, 6 years ago when I seen that data. It's much higher now. So there has to be new leadership. We need to choose new leadership that is going to do the right thing. But we need to also trust that Spencer is for Latinos too, you know? So maybe that's a little nugget for him. And so anyway, this is what, the astrology is. I didn't want to focus too much on the Garden Grove thing, but I guess that's where it went. Because when I do these podcast episodes, I don't know where it's going to go, you know? So, but you could use it in your life, okay, to just not get triggered over situations that have to do with business and it has to do with propaganda and so forth. If you want peace of mind and then you can have a peace of mind, right? Just don't overshare articles and you know go for a hike, spend time with your pets, eat healthy, take your vitamins for the next 48 hours. And the moon in Libra, it's very harmonious, but I don't see it being harmonious because of the opposition and the square, which is a T square, which I don't like T squares at all. Okay. A lot of challenges, a lot of oppositions, a lot of. So yeah. So anyway, this is today's episode on the Astroweather on Memorial Day. I would watch out for that Mars square Pluto. Okay. Don't try to get triggered over anything. Also watch out for things that could end. Okay. So make sure you know where your surroundings are and so forth. So it's good right now to stay put. Don't travel anywhere far that you have to. But anyway, this is today's episode. If you did like the podcast, do share, do subscribe. And that way we can continue doing these episodes here. And also, I have a website that you can also go to if you're looking for readings or anything like that. And that is at www.starzenith33.com. And if you also want to talk to me, you want to set an appointment and you want to talk anything about your chart, maybe you're pivoting a business, maybe you want to move to another location, because there are astrocartography and relocation charts on there as well that you can buy on the website. You're more than welcome to go check out the website, and that's what we have for today. Okay, so have a great day, and I will talk to you on the next one.